Welcome everybody to Crypto Mondays. San Juan from Dubai location virtually via me. I'm your host, Pedro Rivera. I miss you guys, my family. San Juan, I carry you in my heart. Puerto Rico, from everywhere globally. I'm here with a special guest tonight, Sofiane. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Delloue. My French is a little bit horrible, but I'll work on it as we grow. But Sofiane has an amazing project, Newfound Foundation, that ultimately we'd like to discuss with you guys here tonight. Sofiane, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit more about you and your background as I go ahead and enjoy my shisha here from Dubai. I've been representing Dubai globally by doing all my Crypto Mondays episodes with shisha. Go ahead, Sofiane.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone in Puerto Rico. I was actually invited by a friend to visit. We wanted to work together, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I really hope to visit you at some point, because just everything I saw online looks so beautiful. All right, so to tell you a bit about myself. I started in the internet, when the internet started. I was a salesperson in the telecom. I had no degree. I hated school, and I found this job where I was selling telecom solutions, going to companies and trying to sell them something. And one day I stepped into a company, and it was a startup, and they offered me a job of business, business developer. And I spent a lot of time with affiliates. So we had an affiliate network, and we were basically offering white label solutions to these big affiliate networks. And the top affiliates were making so much money from their bedroom just doing SEO and this kind of stuff. At the very beginning of the internet, it was extremely easy. And so I learned, all the marketing and all of that. And so that's kind of how I got into the internet. Fast forward, in the last 20 years, I've been involved in many startups in charge of growth. Actually, the first one was acquired, and then another one very successful. And I've been also a publisher in the fashion space, kind of by accident. And so I have learned a lot about this industry, which is also a very interesting one. And so, I basically spent the last years somewhere between creative and technology. And now it's very exciting because those two things are finally coming together with this creative tech space, especially in the blockchain, the current bull run. One of the main themes, apart from DeFi, is the NFTs. And so I'm very, very excited to see the two passions I have in this world finally coming together.
No, it's truly remarkable how you said that the aspects of your background are now starting to come together, and it seems like now is the exact opportunity to launch the type of product that you're creating. Obviously, with the explosion of NFTs in the market, right? In my opinion, we're in a little bit of a bubble, but at the same time, there is real value that is there with the NFTs. And ultimately what they can bring to not only to the artists, but to the fashion industry, entertainers, and pretty much anyone who produces real content, right? Whether that be virtual content or it would be physical content that can then be recreated in the digital world. You have so much opportunity in the digital space, and NFTs is going to basically bring that opportunity to the masses. So let's talk about a little bit of what your project is. In a nutshell, can you explain to people what is this technology that you guys have created and what problem that you solve, and how is it that you came up with the name and the team and so on and so forth?
Oh, okay. So I will try to moderate myself because I could go on for a few days. So basically, the reason why we started this business is that in the time I entered in the fashion world, I was a bit puzzled by this hidden currency. So, let's imagine you arrive into a new country and you don't know anyone, and they all have a culture and they all have codes and they have some kind of, things that they respect that you don't understand, like why are they doing it this way or not that way. So to give you a couple of examples, in fashion, if you're a fashion stylist and you want to borrow some clothes from, a fashion house, you have to be an assistant to a stylist and then show up, let's say, for years into this like PR office, gain the trust of the people who are going to lend you those clothes. And it's not really about, they're not afraid that people are going to steal them. It's really about the knowledge, the implicit knowledge, the hidden knowledge of like what brand can associate with what brand. For example, if you want to do styling with like Celine, for example, you cannot mix it with any other brand. That's the policy of the house. And then you have other brands who will say, okay, let's say your Kenzo can be mixed with Fendi because it's the same group and it's the same kind of positioning. And so all those things are changing all the time. And so in the fashion world, you have this happening at all the levels. If you show up at an event and you are at that level as a publisher, you cannot show yourself with like a smaller designer. You have to be with a designer of your size. And all these things, if you don't know, if you don't see it, it's mind-boggling. But actually, this currency is extremely valuable. If you look at the fashion space, it's about 2.5 trillion that are being spent every year in fashion. And it goes a bit beyond fashion.
A lot of it right here in Dubai, at the Dubai Mall. That's for sure.
Definitely. They buy 5 pieces of everything in the Champs-Élysées in Paris when they come with their big cars and stuff. So the fashion industry is most of the value, basically, it's in the IP, but it's not any kind of IP. If you look at, the art, for example, the art world, it's like, kind of arbitrary. You have one guy who decides that this thing suddenly is worth $1 million, and then, they kind of sell it, and it's decided between 2, 3, 4 people. When it comes to fashion, it's really about consensus. And so what I love about blockchain is that it's also about consensus. It's about having, the majority of people who agree with, the validity of something. And so the success of fashion depends on a consensus between so many people that have this underlying currency, and that when something is fashionable, you see it, you notice it. It's like, everywhere. It's in the press, it's the celebrities are wearing it, the public, and so on. So you cannot really fake that. You have to get the consensus of the majority. And so then I was like, okay, so what is the actual power, or what is the actual, channels that drive this power and this hidden currency? And I found out that it was actually, nobody actually has power. It's again about the coordination of people who all agree at the same time. So it's a bit like everyone will say, okay, now having a red t-shirt is fashionable. And because everyone says so, then it becomes true. And so when you look at this, way coordination happens, it's most of the time, happening through physical meetings. It's all about, the velocity and the speed of this coordination. How fast can people come together to an agreement by all traveling, let's say in the fashion week in New York and then in Milan, and they have meetings and they talk. It's a bit the same as crypto, actually. Where, you have a new innovation and everyone is trying to like figure out what's the value of this innovation. And so New Life basically is this idea that we want to be the place where we have the fastest iterative process to coordinate around the value of an innovation. So it's New Life because everything that is new is very difficult to value because it still doesn't have traction. It just emerged. And actually that's when all the value can be created, because when something starts from zero, it can scale very high. Once it's already high, Bitcoin might double, might triple, might do 10x, but it will not do 1 millionx, for example, at that point. So, Bitcoin made its most of its growth at the very, very beginning. And so when something is new, it's at the same time extremely risky, extremely exciting, extremely, valuable potentially. And so that's where there is a lot of value. And so the Newcoin protocol is basically bringing down this whole concept that we have been working on since 2019 into the protocol layer, which is basically allowing anyone to generate revenue from their capacity to coordinate with other creators and to agree on the value of an innovation.
Yeah, so ultimately, you said a couple things there that I'd like to touch on. Ironically, I was listening to Yaron Brooks' show tonight. Yaron Brooks been a guest at the Crypto Mondays San Juan channel a couple of times, actually 3 times if I'm not mistaken. But the irony of this is he still doesn't understand because he's not able to put his finger on what the value of Bitcoin is because he's unable to determine it. And what you said is pretty ironic, where you said when something's new, it's difficult to determine the value of it. Now, you and I, people have been in the space for a while. Bitcoin is relatively easy to understand its value. But for people who are like what I call dinosaurs, and I say this effectively, you're a good friend of mine. I love having you on our show, and I love the conversations we have. I don't know if you know who Yaron Brook is, but he's chairman of the Ayn Rand Foundation. He's also a finance professor. He's very well world renowned as an economist, as a global macro economist at that. So I do respect his opinion overall when it comes to economy, and I've learned a lot from him individually. But for some odd reason, I haven't been able to teach him and educate him what it is the actual value of Bitcoin is outside of it being speculative, because he doesn't understand where the value is in the verification aspect of blockchain and how the triple entry bookkeeping technological advancement that Satoshi created when he created Bitcoin, what the true value is of that. Now, I also, seen what, there is a ton of misunderstanding of how it is this triple entry bookkeeping, where the true value is in that. But you stated clearly, it's the consensus. It's the consensus of where the people determine the value of something, as opposed to an hierarchical figure or a central bank or a limited amount of group of people in an organization. They determine the value of something. It is the network itself, the people themselves, that determine the value of this particular currency. So let's take it from that and let's talk about how New Life or Newcoin, where is it that it differs from Bitcoin, and why is it you guys felt the need to create your own protocol?
Right. So yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. So the main idea here is we are still at the very beginning of this concept of decentralization. I think that this dichotomy of DApp and protocol. I think it's getting very difficult to let's say to dissociate them or to kind of give some characteristic where a DApp should be better or less good than a protocol. The way I see it is as a unit of value, a token is a token. So it has a certain characteristics, and it's like it doesn't really matter, if it's a token on another blockchain or on the protocol layer. For us, what's the most important is to find a way to formulate a continuum where this creative value that is scarce is what will basically provide smart governance in the same vein as what has been explored with DPoS. I'm sure you are familiar with blockchains.
Dedicated proof of stake, of course.
Yeah. So I'm really in love with this, with the DPoS. I think that's very powerful because all the energy that it's saving, all the electricity that is being saved can be recycled into, so much, allocation to performance, to trying to get closer to what's happening, on the centralized internet. So when you look at, Ethereum versus let's say Amazon and Facebook and all those centralized internet infrastructures, it's very difficult to imagine a day where Ethereum will scale and will be able to have millions of users onboarding just like that and generating a lot of traffic and so on. When I look at a project like EOS, for example, it looks a bit more plausible because most of the, let's say the components of the centralized internet are pretty close from being reproduced. And so the question is, how can we push that? Of course, DPoS has its flaws and everything is still experimental today in the blockchain space. I don't see any blockchain that has completely solved it. What I find interesting with exploring this proof of creativity is that if you can replace stake with skill, then it becomes much more decentralized because it's difficult to buy skill at scale. So you can have one skilled person, you can have two, you can have three, but you cannot be at the same time millions of skilled people. And so when you look at the power of algorithms like PageRank, for example, from Google, where they are able to measure the value of a specific link on the internet through mathematics, we want to explore that and find ways to embed into the governance this kind of evaluation of authority from creators. And we have been pretty successful at it. And we believe that this can be, let's say, the next level towards, because, I'm sure you are familiar with the problems of the EOS governance, right? So you have exchanges that are, claiming their spot and using the tokens of their clients to vote themselves. I don't see any problem with that, but people are criticizing it as like, it's not really decentralized when you have all the top exchanges like Bitfinex and Binance and so on. In general, I think that it's always interesting to have a diversity of blockchains because it becomes more and more difficult to cheat all the crypto space. So you can find a loophole into one blockchain and try to abuse it, but it's very difficult to try to be good at all the blockchains because they all have different governance mechanisms, they all have different formula, and that's the power compared to that's the power of decentralization. Like the complexity of the protocols and the diversity of protocols is also what makes blockchain as a whole something more safe, where you feel like you can split the risk by being involved in many blockchains, and the holisticness of all those approaches makes it, I think, more decentralized and closer to what's actually in the real world.
Yeah, it makes sense. So ultimately, where New Life is at today, where are you guys technically speaking in your roadmap, and what areas is it that you see yourselves, in the next few months as to like where position yourself on your roadmap technically?
So we started from the dApp layer because we wanted to be directly exposed to the market. So we built a dApp. We have components that are plugged on a couple of blockchains. The main one currently is Delloue, which is a fork or sister chain, let's say, of the EOS blockchain. And so our first goal was, can we build something that people want to use? Because it's sometimes you develop for years your blockchain and you realize that there is no need for that. So if we look at it from the creator perspective, we have built a product where creators can get as fast as possible into this consensus around creative value. So if you create something, you need to get feedback. I will actually give you a quick demo, if I may, of how the product works. So basically, you look at the app and you see a content, and then you press your screen based on how much you like what you see. So let's say I like it, 10%, and then the next one shows up. So here it's a lady, so I would say, okay, 10%, and then this content and this content. And so basically, you can rate anything, and you will press your screen based on how much you like what you see. And so by having all those people voting, upvoting, and giving their opinion about everything, it helps you stimulate your creativity, get faster to the consensus, because if everyone suddenly agrees that this color or that shape or that design has value, then we get very fast to consensus. And so we are collecting all this data, and this model works. Basically, we have already 35,000 creators. We have a lot of people who have onboarded from the fashion industry. And so the next step for us is to go towards decentralization. Because now that we have a very clear case that we can drive a lot of users into the Web3, we know that with a little bit of cash, and so we are currently starting a private sale. We know that with a little bit of cash, we can potentially onboard a lot of people to the Web3. The reason why we care so much is that we want to see Web3 succeed. And when you look at the different approaches that have been tried, it's like very good technologically, it's very exciting. A lot of people make a lot of money, but still the normal people are not rushing into the crypto space. We still don't have 100 or 200 or 500 million users. And when you look at Apple and all those, successes, but Apple is the best one in my opinion. They started by the creative communities. They brought all the creators, the fashionistas, all those people. They brought millions of users, and then they made developers come, right? So developers love to design products when you have a lot of users. Developers love to work on something that will impact a lot of people. It's sometimes even more exciting than money for developers. And so when Steve Jobs introduced the App Store, they already had tons of users. And so in the blockchain space, it was the opposite. It was, let's put the burden on developers to try to find the users. But developers are not the best marketers. They might, be good at raising on the ICO, but then when it comes to attracting, all those consumer internet people, the blockchain space have not succeeded so far. So that's our plan, basically. We want to use fashion and culture, and basically what the NFT has started is awesome. It's just that NFT is based on the creative value of one, big piece of content that's very expensive, and we want to apply that to microtransactions of data and have all this data producing creative value and being tokenized and distributed to luxury giants, because they need those insights from people to know, if you are a big brand, you need to know, what are the colors that people like and this kind of stuff. So we are creating a model where big money is going to come from luxury and fashion companies. The best talents will come because they want to sell their data and to participate in the ecosystem, and their fans will want to follow, and we can onboard millions of people into the blockchain. And so that's why we are looking at protocols. Today, there isn't any protocol that's satisfying in terms of, if you want to onboard tomorrow 100 million users, nobody wants to do that because they know exactly what would happen. It would be a disaster. When you look at the gas fees on Ethereum, it's like nobody wants to scale that much. And I think we need to, because the Web 2.0 and all those like centralized, entities, they are very dangerous. They are blind machines. I don't want to blame, people like Zuckerberg or the founders of Google or the CEO. Like all those people, they are maybe very fine people, very nice, but the machine that this whole thing is starting to form, the amount of AI startups that are being acquired, the amount of data that they are accumulating, the gap with the rest of the world is growing exponentially, and we have to accelerate our path to Web3 adoption.
No, I agree. And it just, for the users at home, and I hate to call them users, but, for me, from my perspective, I after watching The Social Network, I really became very wary of that word users, because ultimately there are but two industries in the world that call their consumers users. And that's, the internet, and also too, obviously, the narcotics industry, where ultimately, the clients that you have and the consumers of your product are actually considered users. So ultimately, what I like to do is consider them community members. But you guys have taken an interesting approach where you have the community of the fashion industry, given your background and your experience with these big brands, and the Hennessy brand that essentially, is ownership company, a holding company of all the major luxury brands, with the exception of Hermes, which I'm sure you have a relationship with them as well. But ultimately, these communities are huge, right? And they have, massive loyalty within their, community members that associates with, these people are very much fans of their products, and they continue to be a fan of their products. And if you have a way that you can bridge their community with technology, as opposed to going vice versa, as you did mention, the majority of the blockchain space started out in the opposite direction, where we created the technology and from that tried to attract the community or build a community. And as you know, building a community is not an easy thing to do, right? So it's better to have a community and bring over a product and just kind of like utilize the product in a way or a certain fashion that doesn't require a lot of thought process on the community's perspective. That's where we are today in the space, and in the blockchain space, where I see it was very different, where people are not trying to teach people about blockchain. They're essentially just providing solutions that utilize blockchain as a core element of their technology. And the end client doesn't really care whether or not something is blockchain or centralized or artificial intelligence. They don't care what kind of technology goes into their product. They just care that it works ultimately and that's effective for their end result, what they're desiring. So the fact that you guys are finding a way to do that and to provide these instantaneous results with their creators is very interesting, especially at the time that we're in now, where the NFT market is starting to bubble. And as you can imagine, all of these, content creators and the big brands are no different, are going to be taking a stab at the NFT space. But do they want to go so from an educational perspective, or do they just want to continue to provide content that works and it's very simple to use? So talk to us a little bit on how you guys have the ease of use that people want to see today, as opposed to going through an instruction manual on how to use your product.
Right. So first, I think, in the blockchain space, there is a lot of somehow, some kind of righteousness around, is this thing like halal or, kosher, or, like the blockchain has to pass a certain like level of a purity test, of like how much decentralized is this. And sometimes this level of orthodoxy can be counterproductive. So I will give an example of like how we see, for example, onboarding. So you have two approaches to onboarding. You have, in order to touch a blockchain, you need to have your keys, you need to have your own wallet, your own private key and everything. And so what happens is you have creators who come, to those, let's say NFT platforms. They are great creators, but they are not very good with technology. And they come to those platforms and they are like, okay, now sign up. They click and I see, boom, MetaMask. Okay, what is this MetaMask? And then they have to reverse engineer everything, try to understand gas fees and stuff and KYC and all of that. Like, you don't have any of this when you install TikTok, right? You just go to the App Store, you say, boom, install, and then you can start using it. And so then there is this other approach, which is not very popular because it doesn't sound like pure and perfect from a blockchain perspective, which is to say, okay, in one click you can get in. We generate a wallet on the background, on the back end. You don't actually see it, you don't actually understand it. You can start tasting, you can start playing around with the product, navigate, try to put an auction on an NFT, try to mint your own or something like that. And then the minute it starts to get serious and you kind of start to have, this economic activity going on, then that's when, the incentive for the user to actually, invest the time and the energy to learn and to, do all those things is much, much, much higher. When you look at the behavior of internet users, they can be turned off very fast at the beginning. It's fascinating, the beginning of things when something is new, it's very fragile. A young baby is very fragile. A little animal who was just born is very fragile. A new relationship with people, trust can vanish very fast. When you have a friend for 10 years, 15 years, you can do a lot of fucked up stuff before you lose trust in them, right? Like if you really accumulated a lot of time, because the relationship is old enough that, if you put it in the perspective of the amount of years that you have spent with those people, they can go very far before they lose trust. But at the beginning, it's very fast. And so with internet behavior, it's kind of the same. You come to a new product, and if you don't get enough excitement in the first phases, you just drop off. It's a bit the same with, relationships. When you date, the first, let's say, the first few hours, they have to be nice. The first date, you go to a nice restaurant and it has to be nice, because if the first experience you have with someone is not so enjoyable, you have this bad memory and it doesn't really scale. It doesn't really take off. And so today what we are offering to, most of the non-blockchain people, it's, hey, boom, MetaMask, go and do your homework. And then maybe you can use our product. And okay, fine, I'm going to use a centralized product. That's how, we turn people off by having this extreme orthodoxy around it. And so we are trying to find, the smart way that is maybe not, that perfect, but that kind of leads to some kind of perfection that's actually maybe more perfect somehow.
Yeah, so ease of use is going to be that path, especially we're at a time where people are, I don't want to call them lazy, but they don't want to spend a lot of time trying to learn new things, right? People just want to use things and make it very simple to work. The truth is that Apple secured its dominance in the, cellular phone, the smartphone era, because they created a phone that had one button. And we take it back to the first iPhone. If you remember, the dominant player at that particular time was BlackBerry, right?
Yeah.
BlackBerry had a phone that had a full keyboard in it. They still have it, right? And still some people are still stuck on that full keyboard because they enjoy the
I
feel
loved my BlackBerry. It took me time to
Right. But ultimately, if you recognize why Apple was be able to secure their position as the dominant mobile phone player, it's because they created something that was easy to use and easy to understand, right? So ultimately, people like technology or high-tech people want more features. They want more data. They want the ability to configure things the way they look personally like. They want to be able to put on their own personal touch. And every developer that I know, utilizes Linux operating system over, say, Mac operating system or Windows, because of the fact they have more control over their software. But the truth is, the overwhelming majority of the public could care less about that. They just want something that they understand. They know how to work. It's easy to use. There's only a couple of buttons involved. And from that perspective, it's easy, one touch and go. So, the way that, in my personal opinion, you guys are going to capture that market is by not trying to teach them new tricks, but by creating not only an operating system that works and it's easy to utilize, but also it's very comfortable and new to them. And that's what I seen when I seen your app. I seen something that anybody can pick up and that they can use. And then from that, it's something that we don't have to do a lot of thinking behind. If you want to tell me there's something going on in the background that's decentralized and it's, blockchain, and ultimately it's going to work and it's going to have a very more secure, way of storing my information than, say, these centralized servers that are used by other social media apps, then fine, that's cool. But ultimately, I just want something that works. Now, let's talk about a little bit about the coronavirus and how it's impacted. Well, first, let me take a step back. The fact that you have created your product and, you started in 2019. Now, I want to kind of touch on that because something that Brock Pierce taught me was that bear markets bear fruit and bull markets produce bullshit. So the fact that you started building this in the middle of the bear market, right at the height of the bottom, right? Because you think about it, 2019 was not a good year for Bitcoin and the price of Bitcoin, I should say. But ultimately, the fact that you chose to start building your product in that time period and you built the technology from that point till now shows that you weren't just trying to take advantage of the hype that's involved in this space, but you show that you seeing true value in the blockchain technology and the fact that you could create something that would provide real world value. So was that some of the train of thought that was going into when you started this project? Were you concerned with the price of Bitcoin, or was it something that you figured, ultimately we can provide real world value in this space and this is something that we want to build?
Look, it's hilarious. I've been in the creative tech, let's say, since 2002, and I kind of, followed the path of internet. Gave me so much opportunity. I was born in the let's say project area in the north of Paris. I would have I don't know what I would have become without the internet. I've seen a lot of people I grew up with, pretty tough place, and internet gave me this opportunity to everything I have in my life is thanks to the internet. And my main energy, my main motivator is okay, with the amount of years I have to live in this world, how can I give back? How can I give access to more people? And I think the work of the inventors of the internet, people like Steve Jobs, all those people, they have added up value. It's how can we compound this value by building on top of what has been done before and make it even better and better for more and more people? And so this distribution of opportunities is what drives me. And at the same time, I have refused some very well-paid jobs for some very big tech companies and stuff like that. I was headhunted by a lot of them at some point. And I always, even in the fashion industry, I didn't see myself as an employee, and I very often took the kind of choices where I would just, live like Will Smith on the movie, the Pursuit of Happiness. That has been a lot of my life recently, in the years 2014 to 2000, let's say 17 or 18, when I, really thought I prefer to be poor and broke and do something that I really love than, the other way around, and then sacrificing, my time for something I don't like. And I was super broke. I was really struggling. I was working on the prototype of New Life. I was trying to find, co-founders. It was really, really the very beginning of New Life. And one day I was desperate. I was like, okay, let's sell, my Nike. And I sell my Nike. I put them on Facebook Marketplace or something. And a guy writes me and he wants to buy them. And then I'm like, but what is this, you doing to like buy my stuff? Like, what's he working on? And he was actually doing an ICO. And he just raised 5 mil. And I didn't know anything about smart contracts. I was interested in Bitcoin because I'm a libertarian. And so I was, just following these kind of like innovations because I definitely see, the value of decentralization and having, a more free and let's say sound money and all of that, because I'm not a big fan of Keynesian economics and like all this money printing stuff. And so, I was just, a Bitcoin, enthusiast from the beginning, not as an investor. But then I discovered this thing that actually you could build a product that would actually bring people into the blockchain space and accelerate, the path towards decentralization and open source and all of that all at once. And that's basically how it all started. And so it was, in the middle of the bull market. I was like, hey, but if I can bring those fashion people into the blockchain space, it makes so much sense. I started to talk to everyone, people from, Ethereum, from IOTA, from Block One, from, all those like successful ICOs. And I was like, hey guys, if we bring those fashion people with the money you have, we can, make, and they were like, yeah, maybe that. Nobody really understood what I was talking about. And also I was very bad at pitching, when you are too much involved into something, then it becomes hard to like, explain it to new people. And so, I was like, okay, fuck it, I will keep working. And so I kept working for the, last few years. And now suddenly it's like everyone gets it. Everyone understands, the creator economy. You have all those buzzwords now. All the VCs are talking about creator economy. And it's awesome because I have a lot of people who came back to me and were like, oh, wow, this thing that you were talking about 3 years ago, now it's starting to, to concretize, to happen.
Yeah, ultimately, I try to express to a lot of my friends, it's timing, man. Timing is number one ingredient for any business to be successful. Had you come up with this concept 3 years ago or 4 years ago, well, let me rephrase that. Had you written a white paper about this in 2017, you probably could have raised $50 million via ICO. That doesn't mean your company would have been successful because the market may not have been mature enough for this technology to be embraced by the masses. And now with the incoming explosion of NFTs and how creators are being valued in a different way and understanding how their value can be transferred into the digital realm, it seems like the time is just right for you guys. So it's a good thing that you ultimately did not launch in that time. As I mentioned, you may have raised enough money to potentially hold you over and carry you over through now, but chances are you probably wouldn't have. If you look at the majority of the companies that raised successfully, like for instance, your friend, I don't want you to tell who it was, but I'm pretty confident that his ICO didn't remain successful because of the time where he raised and the market going head first into a bear market. It was very difficult for people to kind of like build something that had real world value and still sustain their price of their token throughout the bear market. So let's talk about a little bit about your particular where you're at in terms of the company structure itself and what is it you guys want to do to grow. I know that you started your private sale. Do we see a token sale coming in the future, and how is it that you design your tokenomics?
Yeah, sure. So basically the idea is that we have this, let's say, application that is onboarding a lot of users, and it's very difficult for us to, to work with existing blockchains because of the scaling problem. So we are starting a new organization, which will be a foundation based in Switzerland. It has a very, friendly regulatory framework where it's very clear. They tell you this is legit, you can do it, or you cannot, but you get a confirmation from the government. The rules are pretty simple and clear, which is very good. And also it has this great advantage that if you want to partner with all those, luxury groups and so on. It's much easier, than being in Canary Island or Virgin Island or these kind of places where usually those ICOs take place. When it comes to the tokenomics, the way we see it is that this creative value, it's all about market discovery. It's all about price discovery. And so creators will issue a certain amount of data and cues and content and all of that. We universalize this. We don't want to enter into specific categories. So it's not like a fashion app or a music app. It's like everyone is spreading their bits, their digital footprint. And we have other people who will try to stake and to identify who are the people who are actually the most likely to increase in value. So it means that, let's say I see you on your live, I'm like, okay, what he's producing, I think it's undervalued, so I'm going to stake a certain amount of tokens. So this is the first layer, is what we call the sponsors. So the sponsors are people who will try to discover the price or the value and try to fill the gaps where the market has missed out, let's say, on opportunities to target some specific cluster of data or some specific user. And then you have the licensing, where if you are a big brand and you want to know, for example, what is the trends in jeans? So what is the creative value for denim in Morocco or Mexico or Spain? You will be able to query that data. And in order to fulfill the query, you will need to prove that you are part of the top 51% people who stake for that specific query. And so you will have 51% that will access the data. You will have the sponsor who kind of stake in order to share to get some rewards, because when the biggest stakers proceed to the transaction, it's an auction-based mechanism. So if they are the ones who put the biggest stake, then there is a little fee that goes to all the sponsors and the creators. And yeah, that's basically the tokenomics. It's like staking on one side to help all those, licensees and sponsors identify where the data can have value. Then the creators get a certain score. They can use this score to elect the validators. And then, by doing all those things, we believe that brands at some point will realize that, I need actually a lot of this data because it makes my business so much more profitable. So let's say you are a big fashion group and you want to know everything about denim or everything about, what are the trends for t-shirts or something. And you will realize that other brands are actually also competing with you. So you better pile up a lot of tokens before, the price goes up. And so we are currently working with all those, big accounting firms that work with these, luxury groups. I cannot give names, but like the top brands, let's say. And we are going to...
Not very difficult to guess when you say the top brands, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of them come from France, obviously. Two of the biggest luxury groups are based in France. And so we are in talks with all of them. And the goal is you talked about, bull and bear and so on. For us, I think it's very interesting that because of COVID, now it's the bear market in fashion. Especially for the creators. So the brands have already recovered, but the fashion, creators, the people who are part of this ecosystem, like all the graphic designers, the models, the PR and so on, they are struggling hard for the last 2 years. And so we believe that if we can, recycle some of the, influx of money that's currently in the crypto space, we can share it a bit with the fashion and the creative communities. Then they will produce a lot of value. Then this value will be purchased by the luxury groups. And then during the bear market, actually, it will be the luxury group sending back money to the crypto space. And maybe if things are well synchronized and the bull market lasts a bit longer, it could be a massive explosion, but it could be also, in 2 years or 3 years. We will see. That's kind of the logic, that it's not just, taking money from the crypto space. You have some projects that are really, especially in DeFi and so on, it's about taking money from the inside out. where with our tokenomics, it's more bringing money from the outside of the crypto space and injecting, a lot of fiat into the crypto space.
I like it. So how do you see the combination of NFTs and the excitement of the NFT space in conjunction with New Life and New Token? And where do you see you guys taking a role in the NFT space, and what type of position you would like to carve out for your company?
Yeah, so for us, NFT, it's a bit, it's an amazing opportunity, obviously, because it kind of it's appealing, so we have a lot of people from the fashion space, people who are photographers for like big magazines and so on. Now that they see everything talking about NFTs, they want in, obviously, and they're like, okay, now I see that this thing you were talking about for the last few years, it's really taking off, and it was not just a fade, because a lot of people thought, Bitcoin after 2011, all the fashion early adopters and so on, they were like, yeah, this stuff was cool in 2011, but now it's over. So now they're like, okay, actually this thing is lasting. It's a bit like the same with trap, with like this contemporary rap from Atlanta and stuff. It was like starting to rise, in 2017 or 2015 or 2014 maybe. And then, Migos and Future and all of that. And then somewhere around 2018, people were like, yeah, that's it. It's done, it's done. But actually it keeps, it evolves and it just grows and it just does its thing on its side. And the same with the hipsters. The hipsters were, starting in the early 2000s, but it's not a fashion trend that is just, going to leave. And the same with crypto, it's just going to come back and stronger and just better. And so what we want to do with the NFTs is kind of sophisticate it a bit, because today NFTs are, again, this like very heavy thing, this big pile of value. We want to kind of, fragment it into all those little units of value. And the way we do that is through what we call the social NFT, which is something at the intersection of social networking and NFT. So, imagine if Steemit was actually adding some NFTs where the creators could split ownership by tagging each other. So imagine Instagram, you tag your friend and you say, okay, you participated in this content, so you will get 20%, and that guy will get 30%, and I will take the rest, or something like that. And so we want to reward, we want to have more people having small amounts. The problem is that today you have 5 people who get millions, and then like it's just, the long tail just like goes down very fast. And we want to have maybe more, even distribution, where the art world, it's like Pareto completely. It's like 5 people represent 50% of the whole art world, and the NFT space, we kind of reproduce that. In a very short amount of time, we have reproduced exactly what we didn't like so much about the art space. And so this idea that money can flow and be distributed to everyone, like on Steam or this kind of platform, I think we'll have a more long-term, positive impact on the crypto space. To have all those people saying, "Hey, I made $700 or $70," it's people are going to talk about that, and I think that's the next, level after the big news of like this one guy who made 7 million or 70. It's going to be like those millions of people who made a little bit.
Yeah, so what that sounds like to me is you want to bring a more fair and equal distribution to the creators themselves, and having an opportunity to bring into the space. I'm all for the little guy. Everyone who knows me knows that. I fight for all oppressed people globally. Hence why I wear the black and white Puerto Rican flag around my neck, represents the independence of Puerto Rico. Know that this is not just symbolic to the independence of Puerto Rico, but for me, what it means to that is the independence of all sovereign people and all sovereign nations all over the globe. I believe that we should have the ability to make our own way and decide for ourselves what's best and what's not. So I like the fact that, from my perspective, what it seems like is you're trying to decentralize or open up the creative atmosphere for these top-notch designer brands to the common person. So from that perspective, it's what actually enticed me to actually be a part of what you're doing, and hopefully we can continue to build and bridge that gap moving forward. So why don't you tell the people where we can find you at, and how is it that we can get more information on your project and your website and so on and so forth, and drop your contact information?
Yeah, sure. Awesome. So I would definitely recommend to click the Telegram button on newlife.ai. So we have on the the bottom, the footer, there is a Telegram link. So that's one good way. Newlife.ai is our website. Then on LinkedIn, there is my name, I guess, on the flyer. So feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there.
You have a very unique name, that's for sure. I can't imagine too many other people have your name.
Yeah, right. Like if you Google me, like it's only me on the pictures. Like it's a unique key because I have African origin on my mother's side and French origin on the father's side, so it's a unique combo. Usually it's the other way around. That's the best way. LinkedIn and Telegram. Regarding the private sale, so we have everything ready, but as mentioned, we want it to be private. We believe that we might not do an ICO because it's very risky and it's maybe no longer that cool. So we think more about having a lot of focus and attention on the things that we build, on the growth, doing a lot of PR, and then if people want to find our tokens, they will find them on an exchange. And we believe more in that kind of model where we shift the focus from the price and the return and all those things that were cool in 2017. We want to focus more on what are we actually building? So that's why today we did an event, a keynote, and it was all about demoing smart contracts, demoing deep learning algorithms and all kinds of stuff.
Excellent. So I'm excited to be joining your project as one of your advisors, and something that I can feel comfortable knowing that it's something that you're actually trying to build value and not necessarily concerned with the price of your token. I like the fact on how you guys are going about creating the technology that's going to provide real world value in a manner that can essentially bring forth two amazing communities with art and the creators, and also with the technology side of things. I'm excited about the things that we have coming up. I know that we have an event coming up next month here in Dubai that we'll have you here for as well. So a bunch of my Dubai community could definitely catch you down here in Dubai in a couple of weeks. Also, too, I'm sure that we'll catch you down in Puerto Rico at some point or another, as our community there is extremely strong. And, I'm excited about the coming weeks ahead and what we can provide together. So I look forward to definitely continuing our partnership and the things that we can do together and the kind of things that you're building. I'm really excited about the technology that you've created. Shout out to our good friend and associate, Nat, who put us in contact. Nat is an extremely talented developer and one of the guys that I actually run the due diligence of technology projects that are tossed at me, because I'm not a technical person, but he definitely is a very skilled developer from the EOS.io network with Liquid Apps. And it's something that he brought it to my attention. And the irony is, as I'm sure you're aware, as Nat is also French as well. Nathaniel Prudhomme comes from a French background. Mm-hmm. So it looks like the French developers, you guys are starting to put some real work in the industry and actually provide real world value. So I want to thank you, my brother, for joining us tonight.
That is awesome. And Pedro, I'm so pleased we have met. One of the things that I love the most about this job is meeting, brilliant and smart and interesting people. And so that's such a pleasure to have met you. And thank you so much for the invite. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope it was interesting for the audience. I was trying to be as clear as possible, but as I said, it's a bit difficult for me. So thank you to those who stayed until the end. And I'm very happy and excited to potentially visit you guys in Puerto Rico someday.
Excellent, man. I'm grateful and I'm humbled, man. To me, it's amazing that other intelligent and technologically advanced people consider me to be amongst their peers and their colleagues. I'm always humbled by that, and the world that we have built and the network that I have amassed over the years in this space has provided me with so many geniuses that it's truly incredible. But the thing that you mentioned earlier about having this playground where you have the smart people play on it is what I think that you guys are building, where not only you have the technical people, but also the really brilliant people on the creative side come together and form products that the public can consume at a basic instant level and also provide real world feedback. So I'm excited about this moving forward. You guys take a look at newlife.ai. You can catch the website, you can catch them on Telegram. and you guys look forward to the future. So that's it from here in Dubai. It's actually 4 a.m. in Dubai. My brother here is in France. What time is it in France? I mean, I'm sorry, in Prague. You're in Prague currently,
Yes,
correct?
yes. I'm in Prague. It's like 2 a.m. or something. And yeah, I know for you it's like the middle of the night. So
Yeah. I mean, but that's
yeah,
the thing
thank you
with us,
for
man. This is how you know we're working, man. We're working and we're building and we're creating the future that we all want to be a part of and we all want to live in together. So I'm excited to be a part of what you're creating and also helping to bring some attention to the product that you guys are having, because I really do believe it's going to provide real world value in this space. So that's it for now here in Dubai. I'm signing off. Blockchain Pedro's, my guy Sofiane. How do I pronounce your last name? Delloue?
Delloue, yeah, that's perfect.
Sofiane Delloue, and of course, NewLife.ai. You guys stay tuned, stay focused. It's been a pleasure. I'm grateful to have hosted you guys virtually, that is. I look forward to getting back to our in-person meetups back in San Juan at some point or another. You guys tweet out to the governor of Puerto Rico and tell them that we're ready to get back to our life as usual. For some odd reason, Corona exists in some parts of the world and it doesn't in others. It's a really strange, really strange world we live in. Here in Dubai, we're essentially able to pretty much interact and meet up as we please. And, you know, in Puerto Rico, like, I've paid a ton of fines and so on and so forth for the events that we're having there. At some point or another, hopefully we can get back to doing our in-person meetups. To all of you back home that I haven't had the pleasure of meet yet, I'm grateful to have an opportunity to be able to share our platform with you. And I'm excited about coming home and really building the community that we all want to be a part of. So that's it for now. I appreciate you guys. Signing off here in Dubai. Sofiane, you have a beautiful, blessed night. We'll discuss everything tomorrow. You guys have a good day.
You too, brother. Thank you.